Good morning, everybody, and welcome into PuckTime on WagerTalk TV. I am Andrew, and it's just myself and Carmine for today's episode. We've got two games to break down, and we're going to look at a chart from Ralph Michaels and take a look at it and to look at how teams have performed on the whole season versus how they performed since the All-Star break and see current form and not just long-term form on some of these teams, which would be great to look at. And not just look at these teams as a whole on the season, but looking at the short-term results as well. Carm, congratulations. A big 5% winner for you last night, brother. I'm hoping to do the exact same thing tonight in the NHL, despite the small card. But we've got two games to look at here: Jackets, Rangers, Blues, and Oilers. How you feeling today, Carm?
I'm feeling better than I felt yesterday. I can tell I can tell you that much. Listen, nobody likes taking unders. I literally put it in my write up. I had the under in the Buffalo and Florida game at 6.5. It got steamed down to 6, and it still stayed under the total. And I normally don't watch, Andrew, whether it's soccer or whether it's hockey. If I have an under and I have money on it, I don't watch it. I will check scores occasionally, but because it was a big play, I watched the whole game. And let me tell you, I aged about 10 years in the first period because it was 2-1 at the end of the first. I thought I was dead. Then 2-1 after the second. The third period was just so wild that I almost convinced myself I was going to lose that play. It didn't. And I'm happy. So we move on to a new day because it's a marathon and not a sprint. But I gave out, Andrew, the weird thing is I stayed up because I bet on this player prop and I gave it out to my clients and I put it up as a free play. It was a late one. I put it up at like 6 o'clock on Jack Hughes. The guy's been on such a great run on his shot props. He was like 4.5, which it seems like a high one, but that's where he always is. We see it with all the guys like you see it with McDavid, you see it with Matthews. Hughes ends up with like 11 shots on goal. It's insane how you think it's a high number and it just shoots way past it. And I've got another one today we're going to talk about in the show best bet segment of it. But Andrew, this first game, and we're going to talk about this Rangers team when we put up that chart. But you look at Rangers coming home; they have their win streak snapped by this Columbus team last time out, and now they get to play a back-to-back. And we talked about it last season. We talked about it this season. The team that loses the first game, you normally want to take them in the second game, especially if it's at home. You got to lay a crap load of vig in this game, and I'm not going to lay that vig. You can look at other ways of playing it. It should be Elvis Merzlikins in net. It should be Shesterkin in goal. Like this opened at 255. It has not moved. There's only 2 games on the board. If it moves, it's going to move another 10 cents. I know that people out there are going to be like, hey, this is a great night to play the dogs. I don't think so. I think, playing like a dog parlay, it's going to be one of those ones you see on the X or Twitter where you see 2-teamer, 100 pays like 1,200 or whatever. It's a loss to bet. And as far as I'm concerned, because I don't think both dogs win tonight. You could get an upset and get one of them. Rangers are the play here. There's some shot props in this game that you can take as well too. And I'm going to mention one at the end of the show. But I'm leaning to the Rangers puck line here. I think they rebound from that loss. They give it back, and that was their first loss since the All-Star break as well, too, guys. 9-1 since the All-Star break for this Rangers team. It also snapped a 10-game win streak. I'm going to keep it simple. The simple thing would be lay the 255. I won't lay that vig. I'm going to take the puck line. You're laying 5 cents on -1.5. And you can look at even turning this into something similar, Andrew, where we talk about like first period lines on the handicap. And the first period handicap on this game, I'm just bringing it up. Andrew, I'm not sure if you're seeing it, but sorry about that. The first period on the Rangers is -0.5 plus 114 at DK. Another way of taking it. If you think the Rangers are going to start strong and have the lead after one, you're getting plus money on a team that is plus or -255. So that's one way to look at it.
That's the thing, Carm, with these games, trying to find a way to get around that heavy price, trying to find a way to, not lay the $2, not lay the big fave, but One thing I've always noticed, Carm, is that you hear people talking about revenge games, right? And I think you and I are on the exact same page when it comes to this, that revenge is certainly a factor. But to me, it only matters in a situation like this. Yesterday, myself, you, and Prez all liked the Golden Knights. We all said in some way, shape, or form, it's a pretty good spot for them. We did talk about some team totals. We did say it'd be a tough spot, though, overall for the Leafs getting back at home. And that's rapid revenge, right? And now it's just very similar. I hear so often across multiple sports people speaking about revenge, but whether it's football and a team, played back in week 2 and it's now week 14, or, in the NHL, these teams played in October and it's now, April. That to me is not really revenge. Like, it's still revenge, I guess, for the beat writers and the journalists to put that on their captions and their headlines. But this is what real revenge is, in my opinion. You're seeing February 25th is when these guys met last. That's a handful of days ago, right? And to me, this Rangers team getting a chance back at home, and as you mentioned, they're playing such good hockey, and then the streak gets snapped. And Carm, around where I live right now, actually, there's a hockey team, a university team that just went 30-0 in the regular season, snapped a record. They had a perfect regular season. They're now 33-0, including playoff games. And I was talking to someone that works with the team, and they said, look, we love the streak, but at the same time, it's not always a bad thing to lose one game in the series, going into some other playoff games, going into nationals. And the reason why I bring that up is because it kind of reminds me of this Rangers team. Sometimes it's good to get kicked in the ass a little bit, just so you don't get too comfortable, just so you don't get a little bit too confident. And you know what? End of their road trip in Columbus there, to lose 4-2 in that one, to not play their best game. It's a nice little kick in the ass for them to get back on track at home and play some good hockey. But I do believe the overs the play in this game, Carm. A lot of times I know I say do the opposite of what happened last time around. But the only difference is that the New York Rangers were the team that only scored 2 goals. I think we do see this Rangers team get it going again. But I definitely think that they get it going by scoring goals here on this Columbus team that on the year has given up goals on a pretty consistent basis. And the funny thing is about looking at some of the goaltending and the defensemen for this Blue Jackets team, does it really matter who's in net? Because I know there are some guys with better numbers than others, but you look at it, they've given up goals to Anaheim, Los Angeles, to the Senators, to Tampa Bay, to the Kraken, to the Canucks. This team gives up goals to about every team they play. So I'm looking at the bounce back spot here, but I also just believe we're going to see a little bit more of a sloppy and action-packed game leading to goals, even though the last one was 4-2. So it did still reach the 6-goal mark. I think this one's going to have even more goals. So I'll go with the over in this one, Carm. And like you mentioned, man, it's the NHL schedule makers at their finest. Packed schedule last night, two games tonight, but hopefully 2 games we can cash some tickets on. But I'm looking towards the over here.
Andrew, listen, I don't blame you. We talk about analytics, and I know a couple of guys, or one guy made fun of analytics and saying analytics, expected goals. It's so dumb. If you don't take out analytics into consideration in any sport that you're betting, then what are you taking into consideration? Is this just the eye test? You're watching the games and you're like, this team's trash, I'm going to bet against them, and we're going to get to that. Or this team is great, they're in first place. Bet them every single game, and we're going to talk about that too next. But you talk about that 4-2 game, Andrew, and let's look at the post-game analytics on that one. The XG numbers in that game were Columbus 4.95 expected goals for, 4.53 against. 9.5 goals were what the final XG number was in a game in which finished 4-2 with only 6 goals. And that's in all situations, whether it's 5-on-5, 5-on-4, 5-on-3, short, every single situation is covered there. And you can find that at the natural stat trick. So we always talk about analytic sites. That is one of them. Andrew, we use a couple of good ones. EV Analytics is a good one if you want to see a team's record against the spread, um, against totals, against the money line, first period money lines, first period totals, first period handicap. It breaks them down for you so you can see which team has good ROIs as far as on the season, because it's on the season that matters a lot of times, even though we'll quote how they're doing in the last 10 games, because teams do go through streaks throughout a year. So you have to take that into consideration as well. So I wanted to mention that. And yeah, so I'm looking at some goals tonight in this one as well, too.
And I think that again, would you agree, Carm, that that really matters the most in that short-term revenge, right? If these teams played 2 months ago, we wouldn't really be looking as much at the XGs. Would you agree with that?
No, exactly. And, you know, what I mean, you can use any terminology you want, whether it's revenge or, you know, what I mean, like some people say that rapid revenge and stuff. Like, these guys aren't in the dressing room turning their sticks into sawdust. Well, that's what back in the days when I played hockey where sticks were made of wood, but you know, holding on to them and just wanting to get on the ice and play slap shot type hockey where they just wanted to take a guy's teeth out. It is just bettering your performance and making sure you don't make the same mistakes and wanting to beat a team that just beat you. Case in point, last year's playoffs, first round of the playoffs. Tampa Bay goes into Toronto and scores 7 and wins that game easily. It completely embarrassed the Leafs. What do the Leafs do a night or two later? They put 7 in on Tampa Bay, and they even that series at 1. There's pride amongst these teams and amongst the players. And when you lose a game, and the Rangers, anytime you have your win streak snapped of 10 games, and you get to play the same team that snapped it, you would think that they want to send a message and say, hey, you know, you're on our ice now, and we're going to beat you. So we'll see. And the Rangers have a lot to play for as well, too. You know, they have, despite winning 10 games in a row prior to that loss, they have Carolina literally right in their rear view mirror, 5 or 6 points back for the Metro. You're like, win 10 games in a row and you can't shake a team. That just shows you how important points are at this point of the season and moving forward. I don't think any team is taking a night off that really needs the points.
That's for sure. And I was talking last night on Sports Grid about the draws. Like you and I speak about these draws, but I still haven't really gotten into them. But I think that I'm not going to wait until, you know, even like April to start betting these, Carm. I think the draws, we're seeing at least one every night now where you can, you know, sometimes 2, 3 on some of the bigger cards for these teams that just want a point, which is why I think it's worthy of a debate for the fact that I believe that maybe we should change how it works as far as the point system goes, because some of these teams, and this is a handicapping still topic, because, you know, when you've got, like, when we're looking at April, for example, and you've got some teams that you can play the +1.5 on, I'm seeing a lot less empty net goals right now, and I'm seeing a lot more teams pushing for OT, and it's almost like both teams mutually agree, we're not going to make any mistakes the rest of this game. We're going to overtime. And with the new format, which I guess we can't really call the new playoff format anymore, Carm, because it's been many years at this point, it's so tight within divisions. So especially those divisional battles, like I have found that when teams play outside of their conference, like East versus West, or even outside of their division, games have gone over more. But I'm noticing games within divisions have been a little bit more defensive because, you know, each point matters, pushing for overtime, things like that. So I'm curious to see how that works down the stretch. But yeah, I've been really following the overtimes quite a bit, and I think it's time for me to either start betting some +1.5s or start betting those overtime props. But any thoughts on
Right.
that? And you want to get into the chart?
Yeah, just before we get to the chart, you know, the interesting thing, and I'm hoping that as you said, that these standings remain congested right to like the final week of the season. And because here's the thing is, with some of these teams, and we didn't see it much last year, but I think we saw it the year before with some of these teams and some of these games, um, they can't afford some of these teams while needing a win can't afford to go to overtime, so they're going to be pulling their goalie in games that are tied because the first tiebreaker is regulation wins. So going to overtime and winning the game in overtime, but missing the playoffs, let's say on the last night of the NHL season, you need to win, but you need to win in regulation because that is the tiebreaker, and you're going to pull your goalie. If it's 3-3, going to overtime means absolutely nothing to you because you go to overtime and win, you still miss the playoffs. But you win it in regulation, and that regulation win gets you into the playoffs. It's going to be interesting because that affects how you bet games. You develop a strategy, and you think about how do I bet the total in the last 5 minutes of the game? How do I? Live betting is huge. How do I bet the total in the last 5 minutes? How do I bet the sides in the last 5 minutes? You can take a team that let's just throw a hypothetical out there. The Detroit Red Wings are holding on to eighth place. They're in ninth. A regulation win gets them into eighth and in the playoffs, and they're playing a team like the Sabres who are out of it. Detroit pulls the goalie. When the game is tied, you're getting plus money on the Sabres to win, and you could actually get the Sabres playing with against a Detroit team that is 6-on-5 with an empty net. I hope I'm making sense here and not confusing you all, but you have to look at the tiebreakers in the last week of the season and formulate it. And also, you have to look at the tiebreakers and make sure you don't fall on the wrong side of that and bet on teams that you're watching the game and thinking to yourself, why are they pulling the goalie? It's 3-3 because they don't care about your bet or my bet. They care about making it into the playoffs, Andrew.
They do not care about our bets, and that's the thing, is that there's going to be, and some teams are going to kind of start to fade at the end of the year, whether it's being like giving guys a chance, trying new things. When the college season ends, NCAA hockey, when the season ends for those guys, there are players that are going to sign their NHL contracts, and especially for teams like Montreal, Arizona, San Jose, like I guarantee Will Smith. Not the actor and rapper, but the player that got drafted for San Jose, he'll go and play for them probably in April, right? For maybe he'll get his NHL debut. He'll play a few games. So as much as that's a good thing, is that really good for the team? Sometimes it helps right away, but at the same time, some of these weaker teams are only going to get worse. And you and I saw that last year when I was in town and hung out with you for a few days, and the Leafs, who were already way better than the Habs, won 7-3 because I'm a diehard fan and I didn't even know half the players out there on the Habs roster because it was so late in the year, right? That's just how it works sometimes. So, I mean, sometimes a phrase that Teddy once said, we'll get to the chart, but a phrase that Teddy once said that it's so simple and it sounds kind of strange, but it's true. When a team is dead, they are dead. And you can really start to recognize these teams once you get to the end of March, even beginning, middle of March, when you can really start to be like, okay, this team, and look at the Coyotes right now. I mean, they're a perfect example right now. Why are we not fading them every single game? Right now they're looking pretty dead to me. And so you can find certain teams to fade, even though we laugh about Prez talking about Netflix shows and talking about how he's going to ride bikes in the mornings. He was right about one thing yesterday, that's for sure. And that is about just isolating some teams that you know very well and either fading them or betting on them. And you talk about forecasting as well. So, down the stretch, it's a really good idea to do that. But let's jump into this chart, Carm.
Yeah, so Ralph Michaels, Stat Daddy at WagerTalk, he gave me this chart a few days ago, and I asked him to update it this morning for me, and he did. It's a great chart, but if you're gonna have to squint to see this. But I want to talk about um, looking at certain teams. You look at you look at this chart if you can see it, and I'll tweet it out as well too for you guys. But you look at the hottest team on the left side is the season to date. On the right side is since the All-Star break. The New York Rangers, hottest team, 9-1 since the All-Star break. If you're flat betting $100 on them, you're up 722. On the season, you're up $564. They're the best team right now. When Andrew and I talk throughout the season about VIG and Lane VIG, and this is why this chart is important to sort of explain that. You look at two teams, one from the East, one from the West. The Vancouver Canucks are first place in the West, And you look at the Vancouver Canucks on this chart, and I'm just looking at them right now. Since the All-Star break, they are 26th. Um, you're down $347. On the season, they are the second most profitable team to bet on, $877 betting flat $100 on them, no matter what the line is. The Boston Bruins, first in the East, they are right now 30 seconds since the All-Star break, and on the season, they are 24th. But you're losing $961 on it. So what is the difference? These teams have the same amount of points. They have the same records. It is the line. With the Bruins, you're laying 178. With Vancouver, you're laying $1.47 on average. So you're laying 30 cents less. So with the same records. So my point is this. When I talk about, and Brian Leonard talks about it too, the line is too high for me to make a play on it. And you say to yourself, I don't understand. Brian, the line is minus 140. It was at minus 120. 20 cents juice over the course of a season. Look what it does. It turns a winning better into a losing better in those situations because you're laying too much vig. And that's why if you flat bet the Bruins, you've lost money this season. And yet they are tied with the Florida Panthers for first in the East. So trying to convince me, and you can try all you want, that laying a lot of vig constantly and continuously on games in the NHL, a ton of vig is a losing proposition. Andrew, you want to add to that or highlight anything else on this chart?
Absolutely. I think that the vig is a huge part because I think that picking winners is great, but also, the vig is a huge part of it because you never want to plan for losing, Carm, right? You don't ever want to plan for, you go into every bet thinking you're going to win, of course, right? But that's a big reason for me why I've jumped into team totals, because a lot of times you're getting plus money, you're getting short minus prices. So when you do lose, you're not losing that huge price. But at the same time, one thing that I noticed about this chart, I think, guys, you start at the top, obviously you can see, which teams have been great post All-Star break, which teams have been great just in general. But what I think has been really good to look at, if you take a look at this chart, I mean, look on the left and look at teams that are doing well overall, and then look at teams that have done well or worse outside of the All-Star break than they did prior to the season. And for me, the biggest ones, I'd say Blues, the Blues being there, and the Canucks. I mean, you mentioned them, number 26 post All-Star break. You talk about that vig for them before the All-Star break, number 2, still making people money. And then you take a look at the Bruins as well. Obviously, they're at they're the bottom for a reason, but look at the price you're laying with them every single time. And that's the thing, is that with these money line sports, people are scared to play dogs. They do not want to play dogs. But it's the same thing in the MLB, which I'm in full swing with my MLB research right now, is that you look at even the worst teams are going to win sub 60 games in the MLB, right? So it's our job to figure out which games those are going to be. But I would highlight the middle of the pack there with like the Capitals, the Kraken, the Blues, Blue Jackets, some of those teams, like even the Penguins, where, they're number 28 overall. Then you got number 16 and they're minus just a little bit here. But overall, you want to try and find these teams that don't have the biggest differential, because at this point right now, look at the Red Wings, Predators, Panthers. Sure, those teams are doing well right now, but let's be real here, Carm. Those aren't going to last very long. Like the Red Wings, I see Johnny Detroit. He's posting every day. He's fired up about this team right now. But did we miss the boat? Have we missed the boat on the good prices for this Red Wings team? We'll find out. But that's why I think that using this chart, you can try and isolate which teams were not really having the best season and which teams have turned it around recently. Because that's the thing, for some teams, let's say they're 6-4 of their last 10 games, right? Take 10 teams that are 6-4 out of their last 10 games. How many teams are profitable with that? How many teams are really hurting after that? How many teams are about 500 after that? Because if you're 6-4, but you're minus 170 every time you play, or 160 every time you play, that's not good enough necessarily to really be a standout. Even if you're 7-3, But those 3 losses were the ones where you were minus 400 against the Sharks and the Coyotes and whoever. It's not great. So that's why that we always say at Wager Talk with Moneyline Sports, and I don't even think this should be an argument. If you're wondering how someone's performing in baseball or NHL, the units is the most important thing, not as much so with the record, because there was a point in time we could have been fading the San Jose Sharks in the money line for about 8 straight games, and it's a minus 400, right? You're risking $400 to win 100. That's not as impressive as actually earning the units and betting the actual good lines. So that's kind of what I took out of it, Carm, looking at these teams that we can try and make money moving forward. The middle of the pack teams are what I had circled. The top teams, the bottom teams, I feel like you missed the boat on fading them and betting on them. But the teams in the middle are what caught my eye.
Yeah, and I'm going to tweet this out just so you guys can see it a little bit better later. So follow myself and Andrew on the X at Carmine Bianco WT. A couple of guys are giving Prez a hard time in the chat about the Leafs or the Leafs under. Listen, on the game, on yesterday's show, I talked about liking the under in the game as well too in that one, and I thought it was a bad spot for the Leafs. I just didn't think it would be a high-scoring game. And come on, in all seriousness, halfway through the game, at the 11-minute mark of the second period, it was a scoreless game. Now, if Prez had the over, you guys would have been all over him and saying halfway through the game, what a fool you are, over, it's 0-0. And they scored 8 goals in the last 30 minutes. This is what makes hockey completely, it's not random, but it can make you lose your hair. Case in point, there is no hair betting hockey. But as Andrew, you got that beautiful head of hair, man. You might want to switch sports because 5-10 more years, you're going to have the Bianco look over here. But listen, it was a bad spot for the Leafs. The Vegas Golden Knights really gave it to them. And I didn't watch the game, but I watched some clips because I didn't even know that Sheldon Keefe, or as my Italian Leaf friends call him, Sheldon Schifo. If you're Italian, you know what schifo means. Then I'm not going to translate it for you. He got tossed from the game. I think he took a penalty and had to leave. So he stormed off. He looked pretty pissed off and wouldn't talk about it in the press conference after the game. So I'm sure more will come out of it. But I don't know what he said to the ref. We need one of you guys who can read lips. But whatever he said was enough to earn him a penalty and an early shower, Andrew.
Well, he's always running his mouth, but the funny thing is when he ended up getting kicked out of the game, he wasn't even really being that animated. He was just calm and relaxed. So that was crazy. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what goes on with the Vegas Golden Knights moving forward, because without those key players, it's going to be tough. But hey, I pulled up Daily Faceoff. I ripped apart their roster, and they scored 7 goals yesterday. So what do I know about this Vegas team, Carm? I was happy to hit the money line and team total for the PuckTime viewers, though, yesterday, and I couldn't believe the 2.5 number. That was the team total, 2.5 at a minus 130 price. So just because a team is a little bit banged up doesn't mean they're not going to still score a few goals here and there. That's for sure. One more game to get into, then best bets here, Carm. St. Louis, the Blues here. We talked about them a few moments ago. Looking at them now, they're plus 215 on the road. Oilers minus 265 total at 6.5 to nobody's surprise here. And as you mentioned, as we look at this chart here with this Blues team, they're up a little bit, since the All-Star break. They're 3-4, but the average line has been plus 145, 146. That's the thing about this Blues team. Are they a team you are looking to bet on moving forward, Carm, or maybe tonight's not the night against this Oilers team?
I don't think tonight. I don't think tonight's the night. They're on the second of back-to-back, having played in Winnipeg last night. On the season, they're 4-3 in the second of back-to-backs. But I'm going to throw in the big but, Andrew, and you're not going to like this big but. Kind of that song is coming in my head, but I was listening to 80s and 90s music, but this morning, because modern day music is absolute trash. But with that said, 3 of those wins in that 4-3 in the second of back-to-back, where two of them were against free space on the bingo card, the Montreal Canadiens, and one of them was against the Anaheim Ducks. They're facing the Edmonton Oilers, a team that has struggled since the All-Star break. I think they're 5-6, and if you look at if on that chart that you'll see, you're down a couple $100 if you're flat betting them, because they came into the All-Star break with that great record. So if you look at them over the course of the year, you're down a few dollars betting the Edmonton Oilers, but most of that has come from the post All-Star break. You were up money before the All-Star break betting the Oilers, not much, because they started crappy, had a 16-game win streak into the All-Star break. The thing is here, these teams played less than 2 weeks ago in St. Louis. St. Louis gets the better of them, 6-3 in that game. And I just think that the Oilers, I said going into that game against the Kings, that I liked the under in that game, because I thought the Oilers needed to get back to playing better D like they were during that streak, and they did. They beat the LA Kings in that game 4-2. I have the similar feeling tonight. I think they beat the Blues. They should beat the Blues, but I think we see another low-scoring game, and I think that we don't see as many goals from St. Louis. I'm probably going to look at the St. Louis team total under. I don't think they're going to score 6 like they did against Edmonton last time out. So I would look to the Oilers and the under here. You just got to figure out how you want to play the Oilers. You can go that first period again if you think the Oilers are going to start quickly, Andrew. Just looking quickly at this. Let me bring it up here for a second. Apologies, but the first period line on the Oilers, if you want to take them on the puck line, you've got to lay half a goal and you're getting plus 110 on your money on that first period line. That might not be a bad way to go if you want to put a small bet in and avoid a minus 255. And after 20 minutes, whether you're eating pizza or you're just drinking water.
Yeah, that's the thing about those 20-minute bets. Right away. You don't have to wait long. You do not have to wait long to find out. Reminds me of that new trend in MLB, the no run first inning or yes run first inning. Some people just don't want to bet a full game total anymore. They want to just let one inning be their handicap, as we're seeing that become a new trend over social media. Carm, what I've noticed about this St. Louis team is, although they've come to life a little bit in certain situations, they have been able to win some games. The fact of the matter is, whenever they've played an elite team, they've had to step up big time in class. That's when they haven't looked great. And you talk about them second half of back-to-back here in this situation. This, to me, is a great spot for the first period bet. So while you were looking for it, I was already locked in on it. So I'm with you on that first period puck line play. I look at this Edmonton team. Been slow starters their last few games. Slow start against Minnesota, slow start against Calgary, slow start against Los Angeles. Getting this opportunity here to play against the St. Louis Blues, who are in the second half of a back-to-back. And, you talk about the free space in the bingo card, obviously, for the Canadiens. I hate to hear it, but you're definitely right. I mean, the teams that they've defeated, the Sabres, Montreal, like you said, and then the fact that they did beat Edmonton the last time out, it makes me like this spot that much more. I will take Edmonton on the first period puck line here. Edmonton right now is trying to get rolling. They've played some tough games recently against some tough teams, and I just feel like this is not a good situation for the Blues to be in. However, I will mention a player prop from the St. Louis Blues in a few moments for a player that's playing some pretty good hockey right now. We're getting a pretty good price on him to score a point. We'll get to that in 1 second. But guys, we want to remind you that right now you can get your first purchase 15% off at WagerTalk.com. If you have not joined anybody over at WagerTalk.com, tried a package daily or 7 days, 30 days, whatever it may be. If you are a new user, new customer, you will automatically get 15% off on your first purchase. Carm, let's go to you, man, for best bets and what you have going tonight.
Okay, a couple quick thoughts before we get into the best bet. Number one, Andrew, are we going to do a show on? We're doing puck time for the rest of the week, Thursday and Friday. Are we going to record a Friday show for the Saturday card? You want to do a Saturday puck time?
We're back in action this
All right,
Friday.
We will record a Friday show. We're going to record it on Friday, so it won't be live, but it will, once it is, it'll be up on the Wager Talk platform here on the YouTube channel, and we will tweet it out so you guys know that there is a Saturday version of Puck Time as well, too, in addition to the 6 and 60. Quick thank you, Andrew, to in our chat, Manuel Rodriguez. He hit with the Florida Buffalo under. He said he thought we were dead at the end of the first period, so he's bought us a couple of Tim Hortons coffees. Really
There
appreciate
we
that.
go.
Thank you very much. We're appreciative of you guys in our chat. Next week, we are going to do a chat play of the day. That I love that idea from FB Coach. We'll have a graphic on that, and we'll choose one play that you guys post in there, and we'll mention it at the end and who posted the play. That'll be one of the show best bets. Now, as far as the show's best, Andrew, this guy has for the Rangers has gone over. How have I missed this one? How have I missed this one? He has gone over his shot prop in 11 of 12 games. Alexis Lafreniere has gone over his shot prop in 11 of his last 12 games. He's at 2.5 minus 145. So you're laying some vig there, obviously. But they're not going to move him to 3.5 because people are just going to slam the unders. Because if you look at it, he's got a lot of threes there as well, too. But 4 last time outs against Columbus in a losing effort. Home now, 11 of 12. I'm going to ride that streak and see if he can make it 12 of 13. Alexis Lafreniere over 2.5 shots, minus 145. 4 plays up at Wager Talk. Their plays and props on tonight's card. Short card, but some plays on it for me. No soccer for me today. I absolutely hate the card. I'm not going to force it. And we'll see you guys on Thursday's show with Brian Leonard.
Carm, Lafreniere has been great, but especially at home. I love that player prop, man. And they're keeping him at a pretty good number as well. Good price. So best of luck on that one. I'll definitely be watching that game and cheering on some goals there in that one. For me, guys, big play tonight in the NHL. Hope you join me on it. Small slate, but definitely found one spot that I really do like. But I want to let you know about my MLB. We're seeing a lot of early bird specials right now for the entire season, including playoffs. But I have a deal going that is the first half of the season. MLB, start of the season until the All-Star break. Last year, I was number 2 in totals. Also finished the year on a 70% run. And we were 6 at WagerTalk.com out of 29 handicappers. So if you want to try me out in baseball, a lot of statistic-based plays, a lot of analytics, but definitely following things very closely in the MLB, and totals were certainly my strong spot. So if you want to join me for the first half of the season, if you're not interested in joining with the full season, it's too much or too long. That's why I made this package. So first half of the season in the MLB. But my play is going to be a player prop here. We're looking at Robert Thomas from the St. Louis Blues here. I mentioned this team has been pretty good recently at, finding their spots, scoring some more goals recently, but also just getting better efforts from their top guys. But for Robert, his number is still in the minus 130, 135 ballpark range here for him to get on the board and for him to get a point. So we're going to go with Robert Thomas from the Blues to get on the board and cash in tonight against the Edmonton Oilers. All right, guys, that will do it for the show today on Puck Time. Thanks so much for watching. Live chat was bumping. Wager Talk today coming up at 12 o'clock Eastern. We'll see you tomorrow with Brian Leonard right here on Puck Time.